welcome to the podcast of Yotewo. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. We'll have a discussion today about health tech and about longevity, about this industry. And I'm really, really glad to host you guys here today. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself to the audience before we get to the questions?
Where should we start?
You start.
Hi, everybody. I'm Skomer, the CEO and one of the two co-founders of Gina Health. And Gina Health is an agentic platform for oncologists. We are building agents to help them with everything from complex cancer reasoning through to actioning things like clinical trials, letters, and actually communicating with their patients and making that whole process as seamless and reducing the complexity as possible.
Cool. That's amazing. How do you guys divide the roles? You're this
CEO, COO,
okay, cool.
And then everything kind of gets slightly merged in between.
a bit of everything. We kind of play to our strengths, but also complement each other very well, I'd say.
Cool, great. Yana, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Nice to meet you guys, and thank you, Alex, for having me. I'm Yana. I'm having a background in health coaching and technology. And I've built several fitness products, and the last one is AI coaching system, AI-driven coaching system that is continuously adapting to real life context, like schedule, energy, recovery, everything. So we're creating kind of like a guidance, well-being, and training guidance for people.
Cool. That's amazing. I was really excited about today's podcast because we'll have a very sort of, obviously it will be about AI in healthcare, sort of where it's evolving recently. The cool thing is that you guys are on two different angles of the health tech, because what you guys do is more of a, from my understanding, is more of a post-factum sort of treatment and system to manage. And what you guys do is something beforehand, so something to prevent. And it's really cool because we'll have sort of two different viewpoints on the whole thing. But I think let's start with sort of the general idea that I had in mind is that, recently, obviously AI in health tech is a huge thing. There is definitely a boom in this space. And a lot of companies started investing, like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft. This thing is getting really, really big now. So my question is, I think sort of given the context of where you guys are and your companies, how do you guys see this evolving? How do you think the next couple of years will go in this field? And in general, sort of this idea about preventative, shift towards preventative model in healthcare. What do you guys think of this in general?
I can start. I think it's exciting, as you said. Like it's a huge shift into like preventative approach because like traditional medicine and traditional healthcare usually comes up when something breaks, and this is not helping for people longevity. And now we see that people can use like publicly available like LLMs just for playing around with like longevity advice, with well-being, and this is really cool. So I think we will mention later there are bad sides of this, but I think the whole direction is great because like preventative health is about not only about like analyze your blood test. It's even like earlier, because like all problems start when you stop sleeping and stressing out a lot. So I think AI helps to guide people day to day and giving them right choices to make in terms of nutrition, in terms of training, in terms of exercising, and educating people a lot. So I think this is a great direction for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts?
I think what excites me is that especially within oncology, for example, like we see the treatment landscape continues to evolve, but the kind of underlying infrastructure just does not. And through generative AI and the advances there, I see us being able to connect the dots far more than we ever were. And that's what really, really excites me, to sort of reduce the hyperfragmentation that we just see within healthcare on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think in sort of more medical and sort of health cases, it also exists, right? There is also like a bit of shift towards preventative methods. Like, is it something that you see?
I mean, we actually have been speaking to hospitals, and well, we are coming in kind of at post-diagnosis, so we're too late for preventative medicine. But we are thinking about how we can sort of shift left and actually shift right in terms of the cancer patient's journey. So shifting left would be towards that early detection, which is kind of if you catch it really early, it is much more preventative, far less intrusive care healthcare plans, often far better clinical outcomes.
Yeah.
So that we're seeing more of that happening, and actually we're seeing, you know, lots of these cancer blood tests that are being rolled out with varying degrees of success. Gallery was one that didn't do so well in the NHS recently.
Yeah.
They did one of the biggest pilots. But we are seeing these tests come more and more, you know, to the fore, and, you know, to varying degrees of success. But if they get it right, it could be a massive step change in terms of how we treat and kind of diagnose cancer. But the other half of the equation is also, which I think speaks kind of to the whole continuum of healthcare, and the going from kind of early detection, longevity, through to treatment, through to survivorship. But how can you support patients who maybe have gone through their treatments, have survived them, and want to now live a life, but yet are living with some of these comorbidities or some of these side effects. So how do you best do that? And what happens if you have a reoccurrence, for example, or you know, the cancer comes back, or you get a different cancer because you've had so much chemotherapy. So we kind of starting, you know, post-diagnosis, how do we actually deal with these complex cancer cases and support the people who are actually caring for these cancer patients, and them as well. But understanding that actually there's a huge continuum that we can expand into using the same tools and the same structure that we're laying now.
That's really cool. So there's essentially the whole process that you guys can improve, not only the okay. That's pretty cool. And would you guys say before the AI came in, did it affect the product? Because you guys been doing this for a while, right? Before even AI was such a big thing, right? How did it impact the product itself? Like, did it sort of what was the impact of AI on your product?
Yeah, I mean, for our sins, we started building the old way, you know, and actually that we don't do that anymore because you'd be crazy to, and it's slow and expensive and time consuming, and you know, we changed our product a little bit, you know, beginning of last year, and now doing something a little bit different and leveraging AI much more. But I think the other thing is these models are actually also improving at a exponential rate. And some of the stuff we're now doing that with them, both in terms of actually building the product, our own product with these tools, but also using the models within our products as well. They wouldn't be able to do them 6 months ago even. So that kind of rate of change is pretty exciting, and to be at the forefront of it is also pretty exciting.
Just to give a concrete example on that, so we brought a guy in very recently who did an incredible job for us at kind of AI and engineering lead perspective, and we were looking at how we can interface into a data set, and we were struggling with the responses a little bit in terms of some of the responses were concatenated. And we spoke to him, and I said to him one morning, he said, I went down 4 rabbit holes, and then the 5th one, I fixed it. And I said, okay, before AI, how long would that have taken? He said, well, it would have taken me 2 weeks per rabbit hole. And he did it in one morning. So, I mean, the step change, the kind of total productivity change is remarkable.
100%. Yeah, I think we had this conversation with you actually a while ago, the same thing, that with AI, that completely changed the process of development when you guys had the same. Did it impact your product as well? Like, sort of, how was it before the AI?
Before we had like a completely different product because like it was a different demand then too. And we focused more on like connecting people to fitness professionals and making the most of the sessions together. And but it's not enough already, because we found out that like actually AI might be better than a human coach, and cool. Especially if it's trained by a human coach, because AI is magical in terms of like analyzing a lot of data at the same time, and so we can track and monitor so many different data points, data streams at the same time, and like I don't know a person who could do this and like remember everything. And so we after before pivoting, we had like some opinions from people who said that we didn't tell them whose coach they got, like AI or human coach, and that people really voted better for AI coach. That's really cool. And they didn't realize it was AI. That's because cool. The plans felt like really personalized. The guidance was so like emphatic. Who could say that like AI can be very more empathic than a real?
And what did the users say when you told them, well, that was actually AI and that was human? Did they have like a reaction, or were they still like kind of drawn to the AI? Because I know that there's some of the studies with like people doing, I don't know, mental health kind of conversations with ChatGPT. They take the advice from the AI model more seriously than from the healthcare professional, which is probably going to your earlier point, one of the maybe slightly worrying things about using these general purpose tools. But then if they're trained and fine tuned in the right way, then obviously that's a slightly different story. But it'd be interesting to hear how your users kind of reacted to if they found out that they were using this is a AI versus a human.
They were just really surprised
Yeah.
because like I think it was before like ChatGPT became like a big thing for everybody to use, and so people didn't even realize that you can use like ChatGPT for like improving your like training or something. And but you're right, like sometimes it's a really worrying thing that people trust it even more than real people.
Yeah. And do you guys like sort of, because you're from the industry, what do you think are there any specific areas in health tech that are either, because it's obviously like a pretty hyped up thing these days. Do you see any specific areas of health tech that are not yet utilizing AI enough, or maybe some of that are overutilizing? Because I know a lot of companies are now doing with like, AI therapists or AI, like, I don't know, biomarkers and analysis and things like that. Do you guys see any specific areas that you think will be even more kind of underlooked at the moment, or maybe overlooked?
I think the one, I won't speak so much about the health and kind of longevity side of things, but certainly from a kind of hospital setting perspective, the one that sort of was the first big use case that got prevalence was ambient scribing. So, basically you have a AI that's listening to your conversation with your patient, and it scribes it, puts it into the chart and editing it. And that really was the first one that kind of kicked off. And now we're seeing, I think the next level was kind of clinician decision support. So taking the corpus of biomedical literature and being able to summarize that seamlessly and kind of go through it and ask a question, and it will turn. So those two things, I think over the last 2 years, I'd say each year for one, have sort of been quite popular. Open Evidence in the US is the big one that does that clinician decision support. I think 9 billion valuation recently. And is now kind of consolidating. I think the next big step, and we're starting to see that in the market, is the agentic workflows. And we see that with Epic, which has launched, I think they're calling it Agent Factory, which is a big EHR provider, the biggest probably. We're seeing other kind of big tech coming in with ChatGPT Health, Claude Healthcare. They're all trying to basically start deploying agents. So I think that is where clearly the market's looking, and the big sort of health sector has been pretty undertouched, I think, in terms of kind of deployments compared to other sectors, because of regulations, because of the patient data. So I think that's where it is going. Who knows where it'll go next? I don't know, Rob, if you've...
I think the evidence is interesting though on things like radiology. So I think 2016 they said, everything AI is there's not going to be any radiologists left. AI is going to do all of it. There's now more radiologists than there were 10 years ago, but the tooling and the use of it is widespread and mainstream. And actually radiologists don't want to work without the tooling because the accuracy is so high. So it's interesting to see it, A, being deployed, but B, the sort of downstream impact of it. And I think it's not necessarily the huge displacement of jobs that people think that it may be, but maybe the reduced administrative burden within those jobs and the more time, giving people clinicians more time back with their patients to focus on clinical work, which is something that, we care deeply about within what we're building. So it's interesting to see it evolve over time.
Yeah, makes sense. I agree, because I see that the admin part of the health tech is kind of changing already, but I think there's going to be a huge shift when the actual impact on the, like predictions of illnesses or like predispositions or like this kind of things will start appearing. I think it's going to be a huge thing. What do you think? Yana?
Yeah, I actually wanted to share my point exactly about that, because I think there is a lack of using AI in traditional like big systems like NHS, who like GP could be like could be like, it would be like very useful for GPs to get this context before the session. I understand that the doctors, like the biggest problem is like doctors never have enough time for everybody, so they have like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes top for everybody, and so that is why AI could be like preparing everything for GP beforehand. to give a client a better advice, to treat the patient even like more efficiently, because AI would be already highlighted the most important data points from the summary from the summary of the variables, of the like, I don't know, glucose tracking thing, or like whatever data user have, about themselves, about like blood test, because like sometimes you go to a blood test in your like private lab and GP don't get access to it too, and then they're not like sometimes even interested in it. But like if AI could like connect all these data streams together and prepare like proper summary for a GP when you have an issue, it would be great, and it would be really also another preventative step to make overall public health better.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point. Yeah, another topic that I had in mind, because obviously as the investment comes into this industry a lot recently, there's also a threat a little bit. Like there is a kind of like questionable opinion on that, but there is also a threat coming with this. And I've been reading recently that the misuse of health tech related like AI chatbots was named one of the like sort of top reason for threats and hazards for users, like even above like cybersecurity and things like that. And because of that, Google even started removing like the AI summaries for health advice from the search and things like that. So, and especially when the companies like OpenAI and Google, and Microsoft, they started investing in these kind of things. There's always like a questionable opinion on whether the data will be actually reliable, how the data might be misused, and sort of what is the impact on end user as well. What do you guys think of this? Because obviously a lot of people have this concern, especially about when it comes to like health tech advice and sort of personal longevity advice and these kind of things.
I mean, I think there's obviously the push by these big tech players moving into healthcare, and that's because healthcare has been, as I said, sort of untouched territory previously. And to be fair, some of these big players also have tried going into healthcare before and failed. Yeah. So this is sort of the next wave of it. And you see, like OpenAI and Claude and Anthropic, they are deploying their models with very kind of broad use cases.
Yeah.
I think Anthropic's slightly different because they are kind of building these sub-specialist skills and trying to sort of sell that into the hospital setting for the hospitals to then deploy. Whereas I think ChatGPT is probably a little bit more worrying because they are marketing it as a general purpose medical tool which connects to your healthcare record, at least in the States. Here it's not, I don't think, available yet. And that does worry me a little bit because it's not really a healthcare tool, and indeed in the T's and C's prior to launching ChatGPT for Health, they say this is not a healthcare tool, and now they're marketing it as such, and they're not a medical device. And I think there was a study that came out which basically said it sort of over escalates minor issues, under escalates major issues, and everything in between is kind of sort of low level.
Okay.
And that is a concern because then if you're a vulnerable person, whether it's mental health or other, and you're being escalated for the wrong or right reasons, that has a tangible kind of impact. So I think that I'm wary about that, and I think as kind of founders within the healthcare space, it's our duty for our patients and our kind of users to make sure what we're deploying has been validated or is constantly being validated against a set of frameworks. We're putting the right sort of tools in place to produce. Oh,
that's right.
Sorry, I thought I put that on there. Reduce hallucinations, reduce any kind of risk to our patients and users that will be using it. So I think that's kind of the bigger difference. We obviously spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Exactly,
everything we do.
I think that makes sense because a lot of people, they ask like, why would I go to some specific tool rather than ChatGPT? Because obviously ChatGPT is not it's not trained and it's not checked enough. Because it's like even not even speaking about health tech, when you ask just some normal things of ChatGPT, he'll always take your side. Whatever question you ask, it will never give you objective opinion. So with health tech is especially different. What do you guys think? Have you sort of
I think the concern is like very, very valid because like it's because like you guys know like different models, which one is like better with this and better with something different, and you also have your like expertise in healthcare and probably like me too, like I can supervise like the information I get from LLMs, but like overall like people not educated in terms of healthcare, and so they can't validate the information they receive, and sometimes they can even argue with like health professionals and doctors saying like, oh no, this ChatGPT said me a different thing, like this is not so bad as you're saying. and I think this is really worrying, and and the point also that you mentioned, like especially ChatGPT, it always takes your side and always like it's just was trained to to keep a conversation as long as possible rather than just like giving you a valid medical advice. I think all outcomes, all outputs, must be AI outputs must be really constrained, regulated, and supervised, context aware, and and this is I think our goal to make it really to make it reliable, because the problem starts with LLMs, I think, not with like agents, because agents usually like are trained, they are more restricted, and but I think this is a first step. When LLM are available and like people just use it, they play with it, and next steps people go to like agents, and agents become better, and then agents work with themselves, like with each other, and agents work with all other different streams, data streams, with doctors. So it's all evolving, and I hope it's we're not gonna get like a lot of bad accidents by managed by AI by this time.
Totally.
My take on this would be that I think it's easy to think that we're miles away from this happening, but it's actually happening now. And it's happening in the UK. You know, we speak to doctors all the time, and they'll say, you know, my patient came to me with 15 different treatment options, and I spent 10 minutes of the consultation demystifying them. But it's also understandable, and it's easy to sort of pass blame or whatever. But if you're fundamentally in quite a desperate situation, you are going to look at and use the tools at your disposal to understand what's out there. And one of the things that really important to us is to surface the right information within a platform. But we for our case, for example, we've validated all the different data sources in advance, so we know that any treatment option that comes back is through a source that we validated, and it's explainable, and we sort of cite it, and there's the underlying provenance behind it. So, and we expose that information to the patient. So, I think we need to recognise that this is happening now, and how can we equip clinicians and their patients with better tooling to navigate this very fragmented and complex world.
Totally.
Because I guess the default is that they do go to ChatGPT, and that's where the problems rely. And actually, Dr. Google was a thing before Dr. ChatGPT.
Exactly.
So they've been. It's the same pattern. It's just now that the information is even more accessible. It's like on steroids, and it's. We're not. This is not changing. This is not going away. This is here to stay. So we have to work. We have to put systems in place to make sure it works for the patients and the doctors.
And actually, to differentiate ourselves as founders of companies, we have to go deep within one vertical and actually do it incredibly well, or else we will just be drowned out in the noise of these big generalist platforms. We have to do the work to do that.
Totally. Because I think that's the same case with formal life, right? Because when it comes to like sort of personal routine and stuff, it's also quite easy to kind of get misled in this and misuse the whatever ChatGPT would suggest.
Yeah, for sure. And because like I'm always asked the question, what's the difference between like you and ChatGPT? And I'm getting angry all the time, but like I'm trying to explain this as at least like you mentioned hallucinations, like it happens a lot, and all LLMs are not persistent with data. So today they know everything about you, and you think like this is like your best friend, but tomorrow they forget like the very important point, like how old are you, and like and also these models are not trained on like specific like cases. They're not trained to do like specific job. They are trained on like almost like all internet data and a lot of data sets that can be not applicable to your case. And so I think this is
we kind of as best as possible use the LLMs purely as an interface to parse a query, and that's it, and execute and pass a query onto an agent. So any of that kind of LLM knowledge, we don't want that anywhere near kind of our product, because that's where you get the kind of more of the wildness and the response and the stuff that you don't really understand. Like, where is it coming from? It's black box. So we really try to kind of like in the engineering process actually remove that as much as possible, and just using it as a tool. It's just an interface tool in my view, but it makes it quite powerful because obviously you can write stuff in natural language and execute it that way. So it's about also how we kind of leverage these tools within our technologies. So it's not just there as a chatbot and relying on its knowledge. It's kind of there just as purely as an interface thing.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think on top of that, there's also an issue of, because I was reading recently about a startup in US that started utilizing this data to run the health insurance. Like they're refining health insurance based on the whatever data the ChatGPT is suggesting about the user, which is also like a big problem, right? Because whoever owns the data will sort of manipulate the data in their favor. So yeah, there are quite a few problems in this field. Interesting. And then sort of the other topic that I had in mind is about, this, we're at a pretty interesting point when, it evolves extremely quickly and there's a lot of areas evolving at the same time, and it kind of, it's already getting pretty futuristic in this field. And, everyone speaks about like neural interfaces and biomarkers and sort of wearables and these kind of things. So my question is, how do you guys see that, sort of evolving in the nearest future? But also, like, second part of this question is, for you guys as a founders in this industry, from inside of the industry, what challenges do you see, like in the UK, for instance, specifically, that prevent people or institutions or companies from using that, like right now, like sort of, if it's evolving like too quick and the market is not ready yet, or if it's sort of what's your view on this whole situation?
I think like answering your last question, because I remember it like better. I think the challenge will be adoption, about like adoption speed, because of exactly the points that we discussed on a previous like topic. It's safety, and so there must be like very strict regulation around it. There are a lot of like already restrictions in healthcare right now, and so but they must be adopted, adjusted with like AI times, and so this might slower this adoption of such tools for sure, because like the industry is evolving very, very quickly. But like all this law regulations will be for sure a challenge. Yeah,
I agree. Because in our field, like we see, like the problem that we see in our field is that the user perception is evolving extremely quickly. People are getting used to like ChatGPT and similar tools in hiring. But then on the sort of corporate institutional side, even if people use AI, they make it so complicated and so bureaucratic that it's actually, making things harder than it was before. So is there like, how is the sort of institutional adaptation, for instance, for like companies? I don't know. Is it like sort of matching the speed of the user? Or?
I mean, I think healthcare is one of those institutions that's, probably take some of your mental model of big enterprises and then make it even slower. And that's where healthcare is, rightly so, because you're dealing with, significant kind of risks and, the data issues alone are huge. If you're, the way you handle it, the regulatory stuff that we have to step through to be a, medical device or non-medical device, depending on how you position yourself. So I think there's that aspect of it, but there's also just the kind of risk of adopting something within a healthcare setting. Often you're always up against, well, we've done it this way, so we're going to keep doing it this way, and it's kind of worked. But actually, the kind of that barrier you're always going to come up against, because doctors are time poor, healthcare professionals are time poor. There's always a risk if this goes wrong, this technology goes wrong. What happens? Whereas the way that we've been doing it with paper and fax, whatever it could be, is safer.
I agree. I mean, like the challenge here is that the kind of, I think there's a lack of understanding of just how digitally immature some of the existing landscape is in healthcare.
I mean, Rob spent 5.5 years in the NHS, and he was responsible for connecting the data, like the healthcare data from different trusts across London, and
and primary care and care homes,
and primary care, which are GPs,
into one place. So there, AI is being used, but it's being used in pockets, and the kind of unification of that is a big old job. And one of the things that the UK can do really, and speaking to your question about trying to implement things at a more national level, is to streamline the processes that early stage companies have to go through, to have a clear view of these are the steps that you need to undertake, these are the regs, align with that, step through these processes, this is how much it costs, because the barrier to entry is so high. And Skomer and I, everyone in this room appreciates why that barrier to entry is there, but the complexity of navigating the landscape is so like broad. It's so challenging, and it really, you know, with the sovereign wealth fund, with the, you know, all this investment at national level going into AI, to get it deployed into healthcare, there has to be a streamlining of the way that it operates.
I agree. That's an interesting point. Because I think in this field, competition is not the highest problem, right? The highest problem is actually getting to the right client, and that I would say, like, Yana, what do you think about like specifically in more longevity space? Because I would assume it's a slightly more kind of lucrative, more commercial, you know, space than sort of traditional healthcare. How do you see this? Do you see sort of similar problems or?
I wish that longevity would be like goal for many people to reach. And traditional medicine could be shifted more to like preventative help, like it's in Australia, for example. And but I was just like I just got upset after what you said. But because like I really wish that we could shift to a kind of like personal health infrastructure where like all everybody in this industry work together for this one goal, to make people's lives better, longer, and high quality. And not only treat illnesses, because like the more you focus on this first part, the less time you need to spend on like treating really like real illnesses. And so I really wish like this is our future, and this is not that far away as it can be.
Just to say though that there are, you know, there's huge shoots of growth. You know, what I'm referencing is a kind of broad picture, but there's, you know, the London Care Record where I used to work is the biggest shared care record in the world. You know, it was used 24 million times last year, and the use of, you know, that's a physical, there's a huge transformation in the healthcare delivery. So there is shoots of growth. It's just the unification at a national level is and the fragmentation is what makes it so hard to navigate. And that's where the focus and the emphasis needs to go on. It's getting people around a table in person, understanding your differences, understanding where you do align, and kind of cracking on from there.
And I think also to the longevity point, all the science supports it. Like the fact that if you can intervene earlier, build a better kind of quality life around, you know, these interventions, etc. You know, there's less likelihood of getting cancer. There's less likelihood of obesity. There's all these other kind of factors which are expensive to treat if you get diagnosed with them. So all the data points to that being the right model. I think that the issue, and that kind of goes back to my point, which we face in think hospitals, is the lethargy, the fact that we've been doing it this way, and to do this kind of step change in how we think about things or do things is actually quite hard to overcome that mental model and that blocker. And it is I think there is this kind of incremental change that we are seeing, but it's that same sort of mentality of like, okay, well, to implement this, yes, it's better for the long run. I mean, it's like the climate crisis. I mean, maybe, like, we know that we need to wean ourselves off oil. We know we have to do it, but yet, you know, here we are doubling down on like North Sea, you know, oil, you know, investment or whatever it is. So it's that same kind of mentality of like, well, it's easier to keep doing in the immediate here and now, keep doing the way we've been doing it, but actually, we all know that it needs to change.
Yeah, that's true. I think it will be a pretty interesting point at some point, sort of in the future, because I think this, like the longevity part and the sort of the more clinical part, at some point it has to get combined, right? Because even like I was reading recently that you know, the Whoop, the bracelet, the wearable, they recently started analyzing over 65 like biomarkers and something like that, and it's clearly like related to, you know, even it can be also used like as a sort of on the preventative side, but also this same data, it can be used in
well, they got in trouble because I think the FDA said to them that like some of their metrics couldn't be used.
Really?
Or something like a year or so ago.
Yeah, I think they did win. Sort of, there was a rebuttal against the case, and they're working through it. But there was definitely a time.
Yeah,
that's crazy. But do you think that at some point this will be kind of like sort of merging into one field, where it's like somewhat?
Well, I hope so, because I think it makes sense when you can start to join all these and unify all these things. But there is a, you know, to a degree, you have to. At what point does like a Whoop or a Ring cross into a medical device?
Exactly.
I mean, even the Apple Watch, like I think they have their kind of heart rate monitoring thing. They spent a lot of money developing that to make sure it is kind of industry grade, but I don't think it's classed as a medical device. I don't think.
I don't think so.
But they spent a lot of money to ensure that it was kind of that level of sophistication. So, and I think longevity. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a more nascent kind of industry, and there are some cowboy kind of operators out there who maybe haven't gone through the full steps of regulations or like taking that into consideration as they develop.
True. No, what do you think?
I think it's a longevity product is not like longevity is not a thing about just exercising or just like nutrition. It's all about like it's very holistic, and we have products who like track your sleep. We have products who give you exercise advice, but ideally I think there must be like something giving you like well-being guidance overall. And like as you mentioned, I'm a big fan of Whoop, and because it gives me like a lot of data, a lot of information about me and how to navigate this information to make my life healthier and longer, because they like launched this like biological age, and you can see how like your choice is affected, which is really fun. Cool. It's not, I think this is very subjective thing, because like they can't calculate your biological age, but like in terms of like how long do you sleep, how long do you spend time in during like strength activities or cardio activities and heart rate zones, because like they really have this information, and this is really really fun to speculate on this, but for the better. And I spoke with a guy from Whoop actually, and he because I said like, okay, I know a lot of people who were wearing Whoop for 1 year and they stopped because they don't understand what to do with this information. They just like see that, okay, if I have a glass of wine, I sleep worse, and okay, I know it. Why do I need to wear it longer? And I think the problem is here because they didn't give like proper like guidance what to do with this information and how to use the information for improving your health and well-being. And but now I can see they do like little steps to change it. I don't want to advertise Whoop, but I think the like longevity well-being products will go will be more general rather than just like very specific about fitness, about nutrition, and so they will accommodate all the information. Maybe because like I can see my product like this, and I think like everybody is going this way, but I think this is so obvious that we can't give you a nutrition advice if you don't know how you slept or like how you train, and so we need a lot of context to give you like a personalized advice. And this is where I see like a truly meaning of these products, just to get as much as possible information from a user and to give them the most personalized advice as possible.
Because I was about to say, I really see how, for instance, Form Life can be integrated with these variables, because you just get the data and you're like, oh, actually your routine should be adjusted based on how long you slept and stuff. It's like direct.
This is exactly why we like speaking with this like wearables companies, because I think our product is really matching what they actually need to use.
That's pretty cool. Great stuff.
And I think pulling this pulling this wearable and other information into using it within a clinical setting, it's just how do you discern the signal from the noise? Because you do risk just creating so many data points that you just don't know what to do with, and it's how do you cut through, and that's something that I think we all have to be conscious of in anything that we build, to make sure that it's really purposeful and action.
Exactly. I think that's actually a great point, because I'm thinking even if probably people will start speaking with like, I don't know, AI assistants, they'll also be probably lying a little bit. It's like, when you go to doctor and doctor is like, what time you actually go to sleep? And you're like, I go to sleep at midnight, but you'll tell I go around like 10 p.m. So I think people would do the same things with chat. So like when they have this like as much precise and accurate data as possible, that's actually...
Mind you, ChatGPT would probably say it's okay regardless of when you get to bed.
Exactly.
You get a glass of wine, have another one.
Exactly.
Actually it's a valid point, because like I, as a health coach, I spoke to people like personally, and I asked like what about your nutrition? How do you usually like eat? And it's like, oh, I'm eating really well. And I said like, okay, can you just like write down what you eat and like log the meals, and I will really take a look at what you're eating. And it's a big difference between people like know how to eat well and their perception of how is eating well and what like they really need, because like everybody is has like different have different perceptions and different like needs. And so sometimes the people like think I'm eating really well, I like I'm really good, but like they don't eat like any greens, they don't like I don't know, they skip the meals, or they overeat, or they do a lot of snacks. And so a lot of different mistakes. But like it's really different like when you're asked by a doctor like, how are you eating, and it's like I'm eating really well. Like, I know how to eat well, but like I'm not eating well.
And I think there's also a lot of like pseudoscience out in the longevity space, you know, and it's quite hard to discern, again, going to the signal to the noise, like what's kind of actually grounded in science and evidence, and what's kind of, you know, something you maybe see on TikTok with some kind of gym bro saying. I mean, like I do intermittently fast, so I don't have breakfast basically, and I think it has benefit, but I don't really know if it does. But I think it does. But I do it, and I you know, actually I think maybe my blood glucose is better. I don't have a Whoop, so who knows. But there's a lot of that kind of like, you know, these data points that you don't really know unless you're like a Brian Johnson who's spending $1 million a year doing all these kind of trying to live to 1 million, you know, 100 or whatever it is trying to do, and all these kind of tech pros who actually have the money to test every single biomarker. So I think there is a place to help, with that kind of level of guidance, because it is you know, quite new science that's out there, and the longevity and, you know, biology. I think I said this last time I was on the podcast, but biology is really complicated, and we don't really know how everything works yet, and all these pathways, and how, you know, cells actually kind of survive or don't survive, and what impacts that. So it's a really interesting space that is developing, and I think having the right kind of guidance in place is quite valuable, because right now it's, you know, a lot of stuff that's out there, a lot of noise. Yeah, agreed. You guys, really enjoyed the conversation. Before we wrap up, do you want to say a few words about sort of what's next for your company, guys, in the next, I don't know, year or two, or sort of what's on the radar for you guys? I do the intro, so Rob can do the outro.
Next year or so, you said? Next year or so. So I would say, firstly, product out and being used by oncologists and clinicians and in our first hospitals, because really, you know, we're a mission-driven and impact-driven company. So to see that actually making a difference clinically, to improve patient outcomes, to reduce administrative burden, to reduce healthcare inequalities, that's the key things. That's why we set the business up. We want to honour Skomer's mother's legacy. Fundraising is the second part, which kind of drives the first one, and then I guess building out the team and building out the geographic jurisdictions in which we're in would be kind of some of the core pillars, I would say, that we're laser focused on. Great stuff. But by the way, question on that, geographically, what do you guys think? The UK as a sort of major one, and any other countries you guys? US, yeah. Okay. US, and we have good links in Switzerland. We spent quite a bit of time in Switzerland last year. But I mean, they move maybe even slower than the UK, so they do. But the way of looking at things, if they move slowly and they're highly regulated, i.e. Switzerland, is if you can navigate your way through that, and you can actually prove that you can deploy there, then it can help you elsewhere. And it's a moat, actually. Ultimately, it becomes a moat, and it can help you elsewhere. So that's the way we try and frame it, and that's sometimes I have to tell myself. We have to tell ourselves that when we're kind of in the weeds. So I'd say that's the key things for us. Makes sense. Amazing. Yana, what about you? For us, like product wise, is that we're going to monitor like real life context in a passive way, because we do it like in a proactive way, like asking user about like how they're feeling, what the schedule look like. But the idea is to make it like in a passive way, so we just passively monitor all the data and give advice like preventative before they even need it, like saying like, okay, we saw that you have like you had a busy day and you don't have like time for training, so now this is the best night routine for you, like recovery, like some stretching exercises that we can give you, because based on everything we know about you, what happened on this day, and also like expanding the
data streams that where we get this contact, like from calendar as mentioned, wearable devices, and unify all this information from all wearable devices, because like it's all different from different devices. And I think this is for us is a very important step, and we'll get and we'll give a really good personalized advice based on that.
Cool. Amazing. Great stuff. Guys, thanks so much for coming over and joining.
Thank you for having
really
us.
glad to see everyone. So thank you so much, guys.